Today, we're diving into a really tough but incredibly important topic: how to organize care for a loved one with ALS. Look, we know this can feel overwhelming, but the whole point here is to show you how to turn that chaos into a manageable system that's built on teamwork. Okay, let's get into it.
First things first, let's get our heads in the right space. This is not about creating some perfect, military-grade operation. It's just not realistic. The goal isn't perfection. It's about three things: clarity, so everyone knows their role; consistency, so there's a reliable rhythm; and teamwork. It's about building a system that actually works for real people and giving yourselves a little grace along the way.
So what's this really all about? It's about building a system that supports everyone involved. Not just the person living with ALS, but also the entire community of caregivers who are pouring their hearts and energy into this.
All right, section 1. Before we get into the solutions, let's really dig into the why. Why is having a structured system so absolutely critical in the first place?
And this really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Without a plan, even with the absolute best intentions, things just fall through the cracks. You might have two people show up to do the exact same thing, while something else, something critical, gets missed. That kind of constant confusion, well, it leads straight to exhaustion and burnout.
And here's the other big piece of the puzzle. ALS is a progressive disease. That's a key thing to remember. The support that's needed today probably won't be the same support that's needed in 6 months. So a good system isn't something you just set and forget. It has to be flexible, built to adapt and grow as those needs change over time.
So how do you face a challenge that's always evolving? Well, the answer is simple, but it's not always easy. You don't do it alone. You build a team.
You know, it really helps to think of your support system in layers. It is so rare for one person to be able to do everything. A truly sustainable team is a mix. It combines that deep love and commitment from a primary caregiver with the helping hands of family and friends and, when needed, the specific skills of paid professionals. So let's talk about the primary caregiver. Think of them as the quarterback of this whole operation. They're the ones talking to the doctors, coordinating all the schedules, managing the day-to-day. It is a huge, demanding role, which is exactly why having that wider team for support is so essential. Okay, you've got your team. In theory. Now what? Well, the very first practical step, the ground floor, is to map out all the daily needs. You can't start scheduling people if you don't know exactly what you're scheduling them for. Yeah, looking at a list like this, I get it. It can feel like a mountain. But here's the trick. You break it down. Instead of just one giant, scary word called care, you now have these smaller, much more manageable categories that you can actually start to work with. And this is how you turn those categories into a real plan. It's called a care map, and it's pretty straightforward, really. You just list out all the activities for the day, you estimate how much time each one takes, and then you identify what kind of skills are needed. Doing this gives you a super clear, actionable picture of the whole day. Okay, once you've got that map, you are ready to build the actual schedule. This is the moment where we go from what needs to get done to who is doing it and when. But what does that actually look like in the real world? It's one thing to talk about it in theory, right? But seeing an example makes all the difference. Okay, check this out. It's a really simple table, but you can see how the day is carved up into different shifts. Notice how the responsibilities are shared. A family member might take the morning, a paid professional covers the midday, a friend pops in for the afternoon, and the spouse handles the evening. That rotation, that's the key.
And that's the magic of using shifts. It's all about clarity. Everyone knows exactly when they are on, but just as importantly, they know when they're off. This system makes sure there are no gaps in care, and it gives caregivers predictable, protected time to just rest and recharge.
Now, having a schedule on a piece of paper is a fantastic start, but let's be real. Life happens. Things change. So you need some tools to keep everybody on the same page. And you've got a couple of main options here. You can go simple with something like a shared Google Calendar. They're easy, everyone knows how to use them. Or you can look into more specialized care apps that can track medications, daily logs, everything in one place. Honestly, the right tool is whichever one your team will actually use consistently.
But here's a really important point. The fanciest app in the world won't help if you don't build good communication habits around it. Things like a daily log for smooth shift handoffs, a group chat for urgent news, and just a quick weekly check-in to make sure small problems don't turn into big ones.
This brings us to our final section. And honestly, this might be the most important one of all. How do you build a system that's sustainable, one that can really go the distance? We have to talk about this. We have to be honest about caregiver burnout, because it is, without a doubt, the single biggest threat to any care plan. It's simple. If the caregivers collapse, the whole system collapses with them. Recognizing these signs is the very first step to preventing it.
It's a fair question, right? How can a simple calendar really fight something as powerful and overwhelming as burnout? Well, here's how. A good schedule isn't just a to-do list for tasks, it's a protection plan for the people on the team. It proactively builds in breaks. It makes sure you rotate the difficult duties so no one person is always carrying the heaviest load. And it has to be flexible, because a system that's too rigid will eventually break. And with all this talk of schedules and systems and apps, let's just end by bringing it all back to what matters most. The whole point of this entire structure is to support the comfort, the dignity, and the personal choices of the person living with ALS. They have to be at the center of every single decision.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to take with you. Building a system like this is a team effort, right from the start. So what is the first small, concrete step that your team can take together to start building that clarity and consistency?